I'm here with you, Annie, from the wonderful, in case anyone was wondering about how to say your name, because I was one of those, it's CLT DRP, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not drop or clap drap or anything like that, but CLT DRP. Makes perfect sense when you know it, but
yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one wondering sometimes, because
it's big my name.
So we're here today to talk about your wonderful new single, Aftermath, which was out, remind me, on the 7th, is that right?
Yeah, the 7th. Oh, 7th of
October.
Sorry, the single came out and then the 7-inch came out on the 7th.
Ah, okay, fine. Yeah, understood. So everyone can find it on all platforms everywhere now.
Yeah.
As well as vinyl in shops, is that right?
Yeah, so the 7-inch vinyl, and then everywhere streaming, all the streaming.
Okay, great. Now I've got noise. I've got someone drilling downstairs. Never mind. So congratulations on the single. I think it's wonderful. It sounds like a departure from your previous stuff, which is kind of more metal and new metal, I think you describe it as, and angry, actually. So was this kind of organic? Was it a kind of natural evolution, or was it an intentional shift?
It was a bit of both. Definitely organic because it serves the content of the song and kind of when we were recording it. Like the three of us kind of worked to make the song kind of what it was. I felt I wanted to write a ballad that accompanied the content, as well as like us kind of shifting away from a different sound with the new music this year. So yeah, a little bit of both.
Okay, and I did read in your press that actually I don't know if it's just you or if it's all of you, are kind of more rooted in theatre and musical, is that correct?
So that's just me. I grew up with like a musical theatre background.
Right.
Big time. So it was pretty nice for me to also just like sing a song and like kind of use my voice sort of, because a lot of it is like, you know, shouty and angry, and punk stuff, which I do love. Like that's a whole nother cathartic thing for me, but it was fun to kind of like actually sing on something and get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, the song itself comes across as a whole, as a kind of highly resolved piece of theatre in itself, and then actually watching the video that you shot with it, it kind of like complements it exceptionally well, I think. So
I'm just as afraid of the men that I know than I am of these strangers. I said I wanted to take it slow. He said I thought you were an entertainer.
So the video was done by my friend Harry Steele, who goes under Haunted Mattress. He lives in Bristol, and he's done some work for our friend Harriet. He's an amazing videographer, and I asked him to do this one for me because I knew him, and it felt like I want to work with someone a bit more in a personal way. As in, like, it's a personal song, so I'd rather work with a friend rather than a stranger to be able to do that. And they kind of came up with the concept themselves with their friend Jake Packer. So I kind of let Harry have the strings on it a little bit. But I was really happy with that video. I kind of, it was funny, like I was like, I think, I don't know if have you seen the video?
Yeah.
So in the middle, I was like, I don't know if I should rip my dress, because I feel like the song is very self-reflection-y, as well as like, I'm calling people out, but as well as like looking at myself and being like, all right, as like someone who's a part of this community and talks a lot about feminism and has been sexually assaulted and watched my friends go through the same thing, like what am I actually doing to help this conversation? And like it's actually a lot harder than people think it is.
When the hell did I become so vain? We're not protecting anyone, just saving face.
that conversation was around kind of like feeling, the self-reflection around what I was doing and how I was being a part of that conversation, as well as looking around me. And I think the dress kind of was, it's obviously the aftermath of what happens like after assault or after sexual assault or after any kind of trauma around that, gender violence. But it's funny because I was really worried about like, I was like, oh my God, my belly's gonna show. Like I totally just got into this funny little headspace of being like, oh, I'm gonna show a part of my body, or like, is this gonna be seen like over sexualized? Like, is this gonna send the wrong message? And then I kind of just snapped out of it. My friend was just like, what are you talking about? Like, it's a great idea. And the fact that you're even worrying about this just shows that you've just got so many ingrained things in you when it's just serving the piece, you know? But I guess I'm just talking about it because it's just so funny how many things you worry about. And like, I'm just trying to tell a story about like my pain and like connect to people. But those are the things that our heads immediately go to. And it's just a kind of a wild navigating things out there, you know?
Which does make complete sense, because actually I think the beauty of the song is that it does completely, it is very empathetic. And actually, when I read your press release, it kind of made sense of why it kind of struck so deep, or it strikes so deep, because the song is not finished, it will keep going, it has a life. Is that actually it's very, very empathetic, and it is the idea that we all internalize this stuff. It's like that is the real trauma about this kind of abuse, is that it's very silent and very invisible, and we don't know what to do about it, and we don't always know how to call it out, and we don't know how to protest against it, which is like, as I was saying before, I think punk and anger really plays a vital part in bringing stuff to the surface, but actually what needs to be recognized, and I think you did say it yourself in the press, is that, you know, older people are wired and have been wired a certain way for longer and have been carrying this stuff, and it's the fact that we do pass it down. That how do we process it? How do we get it out there? Which is why I think what you've done here is so complete and actually mature. It's a really mature acknowledgement of the pain of everything.
It's taken a while.
But it's huge. What you're doing is huge. You know, what you're dealing with. The whole subject is huge. So
it's funny. It's hard to talk about. Like I was saying to my partner yesterday, I was trying to write this piece, and I've already made a zine surrounding the topic. Like the press release, a lot of what I wrote in the press release is in the zine, plus featured some like photos and kind of like other little bits. And it's getting released with the 7-inch as a bundle. So I made it all myself. And it was a lot of work. Like I'm not tired of talking about it, because I think it's like it needs to be spoken about. So I'm never gonna not be tired of talking about it. But it is a lot. But also the way that like you listen to, it's funny when we play sets or music now, and some of the music I don't want to play anymore because I feel like I'm 18 and or 20 in my 20s, or like early 20s, and being really like I'm so angry and I don't really know how to do anything about it. Whereas I think a lot of the stuff I'm writing now has shifted a lot. I actually did my master's in gender studies during lockdown, during all and everything was going on during that, when that song was created, during the Sarah Everard murder, and like had so many fights with people, had so many like really uncomfortable conversations, a lot of like redigging up for people and like friends, and like especially female friends and non-female friends, queer friends, talking about like their assaults, or like an older people and older moms or colleagues or friends. And it was just funny like listening to the pattern of it and being like, wow, everyone's so resentful of each other, but also like nothing's really changing. And I think a lot of that has to do with like gender and a lot of the stereotypes around it, and me questioning like my gender, and like that shift has come out of like the woe is me thing, and the more of like, well, where did this problem come from, and like why is it happening, and why does it keep happening? Because there's a lot of microaggressions that have changed and got better through our generations, but like I don't feel like the worst case scenario is still happening, I guess, you know. If that makes sense. Sorry, I just went on a bit of a rant. But
well,
yeah.
Yeah, but that makes sense too, because it's a very wide subject and there's a lot of history to kind of acknowledge and absorb so that we can all move forwards. I mean, I think that's true of everyone, and I think that's what is exemplified in what you've delivered here in the song. I mean, I think it's very impressive. So so actually, what's the process for this? Did I just ask the question? Sorry, I can't remember anything I've said. But the process for you coming together to write the song, was that different from your, because you said you are shifting, you personally are thinking about different things, but as collectively as Collective, do you feel like your process is kind of changing? Was it different for this song?
I think it's changing a little bit. I think it's still, I mean, I think sometimes Scott Penn-Sierra, my guitarist, like when he brings a mood or an atmosphere or a sound, we kind of feed off that, because we don't have anyone sitting there writing a melody line like on a guitar or bass or something. Like it's usually kind of an atmosphere or a sound or like a piece of something, and then Daphne will kind of pick up on it and then I'll kind of vibe off of it. So we do write collectively together in the room, and like that kind of, and it manifests like a change over time. But this one, there's like a specific loop, and I think we hadn't really had anything on it for a while. And then when I had the lyrics to this, I kind of brought it to the room and was like, hey, I think this will fit. This is how I've been feeling lately. I kind of want to write like a big ballad. And all of us were kind of like, yeah, we want to do something different. Like we don't want to stick in this box as well. Like, and that's kind of how that like came about.
Yeah, well, and successfully too, which is why it's interesting that you then passed it to Big Moon to do a version, because I feel like you created a particular world here. It's like, as I said before, it's like almost like a complete piece of art. You've got the content, it matches with the whole sound world and the visual world that's like come together to present this piece. And then you kind of go, hey, other great band, why don't you do a version of it? Which is, I mean, it's quite a risk given the nature and the content of the song, because it's possible to believe that the way you put it together is inherent to how it, to its success. So how was it with Big Moon? Because I actually think what they did with it is similar to what you've done, in that they created a kind of a world where the content is king, queen, but very differently in their own way.
Well, our label essentially wanted us to do a cover or remix of it to have on the side, and I kind of was like, I don't really want to just give this willy-nilly away to anybody. No. And then Nathan is like a family friend. I call her my cousin because she's like practically family to me, and who's in the Big Moon and our girl. And I asked her if she wanted to like mess around with it and listen to it, because I trusted her as a person, and she means a lot to me as like a figure and someone like I can find it, and I know that she like treat it with care. By the Big Moon or her solo project, and then the Big Moon decided they really liked it and wanted to try it. So her and the drummer Fern, I think they recorded and mixed it and produced it themselves, the two of them, and that's kind of what they came up with. And it is really interesting because it's so different. It's not as like ballady, but I think it like kind of creates this tension in a very different way. And it's funny because it's like kind of what we're talking about. It's like everyone's got a different experience, and those words might mean something so different, but I think it still hits hard, but it hits in like a very much more of like a almost like a turmoil-y way, rather than like this big kind of like story kind of thing, but yeah, that's how that came about.
So how did you feel when the label asked you to get someone to do a cover of it? Because I mean, I can imagine you've obviously found the right person or the right group, but
I mean, they usually ask us.
Did you want to say no?
I think if it wasn't someone I wanted to do it, I would have said no. We have a pretty good relationship with them, and they usually ask us to do a remix or a cover of things, because it's good to get collabs out and work with people collectively and like ask people for favors, and like I think that's a nice community thing to do. But yeah, no, if it was someone I didn't really trust it with, I would have said no. But luckily enough, that was like a nice way to have that done. Yeah. Really, because they're such a big band too. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's nice to I'd be lying if I said it was nice to have that exposure, but it was like the most wholesome exposure someone could ever ask for.
Yeah, I think they've been true to the piece, and actually possibly maybe just extends its accessibility because it kind of presents it in another kind of sound world. So,
and you know what, they're like, their ethics and what they talk about, and 4 of them are really good, you know, and like that's important to us, and I think that it was just like a nice dynamic to have that, to like have them be a part of that. So I was really happy for that to go forward. We all were.
so just to finish off, what is next? You said you've got a whole album, and I see that you've got some shows coming up. So can you just tell us a little bit about what to expect next from CLT DRP and that timeline?
So we're actually going on tour, like in the UK and in Dublin, next week with Distad. So we're supporting them, and then we've got about 2 weeks in Europe with them as well. So that'll be really exciting. Lots of driving in Europe with the 3 of us crunched up in the van.
Nice.
It's nice, like venue caps and stuff, and the band sounds like aesthetically really cool. And then yeah, our second album's due to come out, I think, around April next year. The title's called Nothing Clever, Just Feelings. So it's a it's a little different. Yeah, we're all really excited about it though. It's like, it's a bit cheeky, it's a bit more playful. It's like really honest, like disgustingly honest. I'm a bit like, oh God, why did I? But like in a healthy way. But yeah, so that's kind of what's happening at the minute. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's it. I'm not going to let it run too long because Cassie's going to have to try and do an edit down of this.
It's all right. I rant so much.
No. It's all great. So anyway, huge congratulations. I think it's wonderful, and I hope I get over to Brighton to come and see you soon.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the interview. Like, I really enjoyed that one. That doesn't happen very often.
All right. Really nice to meet you, Anna. You take care.
Have a good day. Thank you.
And you. Bye.
What do I do now with the remnants?